Okay. All right. Let me share my screen here then. We shared that one. Will that work? All right. Don't fail me now, Wayland. Let's see. All right. Everybody see that? See a screen? I think maybe it did fail me. Hang on a second. Dell 97. Okay, I can see that. Share. There she goes. Okay.
There it is.
See it.
All right. So a few weeks ago, months ago, one of our meetings came up talking about dealing with and blocking AI scrapers because it has become a problem, and some stuff that you can do to deal with that. Back in last year, there were a few techniques involving what I would call or like block lists, like a fail to ban type solution. There's one out there for Nginx specifically where it'll go and update a list of known bad bots sites. The problem with that is it's kind of reactive. You have to somebody has to get hit with it first before that list of IPs gets updated. These people have zero respect for any of the kind of commons on any of this stuff or your resources or anything like that. And so it wasn't really fast enough, and then they'll just move to a different block of IPs and start scanning again. So that's the problem. Scraping for LLM and ML data, local language, large language model, and machine learning data. This is the new oil. This is the new gold rush. This is the new big data. Basically, there is so much. What was it? It was at some point. Some of you more financially literate. I don't know. Probably not literate. More with the stock market stuff. Probably realize that a third of our stock market is being propped up by 4 companies right now, NVIDIA and AI companies. It is the new thing to get money. And so with that much money flowing into it, these companies are not respecting the people developing content online and putting things online. And so they're just like, they've got to hoover it all up before their competition does. Little to no respect. Everybody here familiar with robots.txt? Yep. It's a little text file you can put in your website, and by default, you can block and allow certain bots, but well-behaved bots, I should say, would look at that file and say, "Oh, I'm not allowed to be here. I won't index this site." It was kind of a previous method for staying off Google. If you wanted, if you didn't want something to show up in Google search or something, you could use robot.txt. These bots, particularly, none of them do it. The Alibaba and the Chinese Tencent companies are kind of more brazen about it. The American ones just hide behind a different user agent string. They do it too. They are just ignore. Their official OpenAI bot will ignore this, but then they'll run something out of a VPS out of Russia or Ukraine or something like that to scrape anyway. They've been Perplexity got busted doing that a time or two. So just no respect. On the end user side, on your side as a someone who's running a website or something like that, it's going to increase your postage billing because most of these things charge per CPU hours now. And it also degrades service for legitimate users. So if one of these guys is beating up your website and chewing up resources, chewing up RAM, chewing up bandwidth, you're going to see other legitimate people come through and not be able to get to it, have a slow, degraded experience, get frustrated with it, and leave, which is bad. If you're writing things for humans, robots running off humans is bad, right? There was Codeberg saw this, GitLab had this problem with it. There are a few solutions. I would say the first thing I tried, and other people have, was called the failed to ban whack-a-mole, which if you've ever had a box on the internet, you probably know what failed to ban is. It looks through your SSH logs. It could be set up to look through like web server logs too, and looks for people trying repeatedly to log in with bad credentials, and bans them for, you can set it to ban for an hour, a day, a year, forever, or forever, depending on your mood. This is ineffective just because they move IP blocks. I think fail to ban came up in a time 10 to 20 years ago when getting a new IP space was expensive and troublesome. But now with the propagation of the $5 UPS and Amazon Web Services, that is no longer a problem. Excuse me. The goldenrod is definitely blooming. I've got a little cough there. Thank goodness for hardware mute. Anyway, the other option, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, is Cloudflare. That's what we use at work. The problem is pricing models can change. I saw one guy got hit with like a $4,000 bill 1 month from Cloudflare when he put his stuff behind it because it was getting botted. They also have some, I would say, there are those of us who have some philosophical issues with how Cloudflare works. Cloudflare essentially man-in-the-middles every connection. So the way it works is that your web server sits below it. Cloudflare sits up here, and it takes your SSL certificate, your website.com certificate, presents it to the end user, and then it decrypts it there and then sends the traffic back to your web server. I'm not saying I'm crazy, but if I was some unscrupulous organization looking to snoop at all of the data on the internet, I'd set up a company like Cloudflare and encourage everyone to use it. So for me, it kind of fundamentally breaks that. It also means if Cloudflare goes down, it's like AWS, half the internet goes down, which in my mind defeats the original design of the internet, which was to be robust and kind of self-healing in a way where like one node of failure doesn't mean the whole thing goes down. The other option is to login wall everything. These bots really struggle with login walls. So if you're on like a forum or something like that, just throw up a login wall. That's great. Other problem is, again, if you are, I had a discussion about this with the proprietor of an astronomy forum I'm on, and he wants to keep it open because people find stuff on Google. This thing has 25 years of knowledge about the subject, my argument there to him is, these companies have kind of broken the social contract. Google is really pushing their AI mode on their search, so they aren't driving traffic back to your site anymore. They're taking your data, presenting it to the user as their own, and you're not getting any traffic or any benefit or really any reference off of it. They don't even put hardly a link or anything in there that says like this is from so-and-so.com. So login wall everything is a solution if you've got a limited set of users, maybe, but it may not be for everyone. Enter Anubis and Bot Stopper. This is an open source proxy, so it's a little proxy server that sits in front of your Nginx or your Apache or whatever web server, web app with Tomcat. It doesn't matter. It just passes traffic. So it just passes or rejects traffic, rather. So it doesn't matter what you have on the back end. It came out, I want to say in March. It's written by a Canadian developer. And she's got a commercial version called Bot Stopper that if you are a commercial entity and like say you want to put your own logo on it and brand it and all of that, you basically go and buy the commercial version, and she offers some support and stuff for that. It has become exceedingly popular in the last 6 months. It's available as an RPM deb and Docker container and a Kubernetes chart. So I've run it in Podman, but then I switched to the Debian package once that became available. It uses something, if you've been vaguely around the cryptocurrency world, you probably heard the word proof of work, and that's kind of like how a lot of Bitcoin and Ethereum type mining works. Like they do a big math problem and then tells the blockchain, like, hey, I did this math problem, that fraction of a coin is mine or whatever. It uses that same kind of technology, not cryptocurrency or blockchain, but proof of work to prove that you're a real web browser. Basically, what it does is when you hit the website, it asks your browser to do a quick math problem. And if you do it and return it correctly, it goes, you're a real browser, you can go on through. And a lot of these crawlers are just simple Python scripts that can't do that math problem. Or it also flips it on the head. So there have been some people who have, in the recent 3 weeks or so, have learned how to bypass Anubis because they're using headless Chrome. I think it was Alibaba that did it. They're using headless Chrome, and they're actually doing the math problem. But it's costing them money because if you've ever run something on a cloud instance, again, they charge by CPU time. So instead of you, the end user, having to pay Cloudflare to protect your site or pay for more CPU resources so that your users do not see degraded service from these bots, suddenly the company doing the scraping is having to pay increased CPU time on their cloud instances, on their cloud scrapers to scrape your site. So I don't think that the headless Chrome method is going to be used for anything but, I would say, high priority targets by these AI companies. Thankfully, I'm not a high priority target, but I think it was Codeberg and GitLab that noticed that Alibaba was scraping their site and getting past Anubis and using headless Chrome. There's a patch, I think, that's come out for it since then to kind of mitigate that some. But again, at the end of the day, they're paying a ton of money to just scrape that. That's kind of satisfying to me. It's like, well, this is already expensive to run. Now we're going to maybe bleed this market dry faster. So, side effect I've noticed is it makes door knocking and exploit scanning expensive and basically go away. If you've ever run a web server on the internet, you've probably seen your web blog full of like them looking for WordPress or Drupal vulnerabilities. Even if you aren't running those products, they're looking for like /WP login and trying to pass it some obscure string to break in on some exploited WordPress. Those basically go away because, again, they're automated. They can't do the math problem. And, it really kind of tightens that up. It's really kind of, for me, it's become not only a AI scraper stopping, but like a security feature, like a web application firewall. Let me show you how it looks. So if you go to a site, I'm going to engage private mode here. So if you go to that took a little too fast, but let's see, if we go to the dev's website, you see a little bit of a splash screen. Mine took a little while. If you go to my website too, you get the splash screen. You can see how fast it is. It really doesn't take long for the end user. You can scale up the difficulty. In fact, there are ways to set it to scale the difficulty based on the load of your server, which is a neat feature. So Anubis can sit on your web server and monitor your CPU load and your RAM load and decide, hey, this thing's getting hammered. Let me scale up the difficulty on that calculation. Right now my web server is not seeing a lot of load, so it's just like, low difficulty, let people in. But if you're getting really hammered, it'll scale up that difficulty to kind of throttle connections back for a while and let your server catch up. How effective is it? So this is what I have it in front of here is my Poligio instance, or Poligo. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's basically a photo. I set this up this summer. It's basically a photo, open source, self-hosted photo website, photo and video, so I can upload my stuff to it. And, it's fairly basic. It's fairly kind of, if anybody still uses Flickr, it's kind of similar to that, but you can host it yourself. So, you've got videos here too and whatever else. But when I set it up, this is all bot traffic here. This is before I engaged at work, we kind of jokingly call this the little mascot, the cat girl. So this is before I engaged the cat girl. And you can see, they basically were locked the server at full load. That was just, they could not request resources any faster. And down here in the middle of July is when I installed it on this server and set it up. And basically my hits dropped to 0. And I have It also provides metrics via Prometheus and into Grafana. So I have a dashboard here, so I can show you the last 7 days of this website in particular, of how many requests it served, requests handled, challenges issued. So it'll handle the request if it recognizes a client. So it can set like a bit basically. And so if you go to a website repeatedly, you'll only see that bot the first time or that web page, and then it'll remember you for like a month or something like that. And so that's why it's only issued 66 challenges for 381. Most of these requests were me using the Darktable export plugin to Polygo. So, it's like, oh, I know who that is. In fact, you can write whitelists and stuff like that to allow lists and stuff to allow certain things to be accessible to certain user agent strings. But it's pretty smart. Like Darktable actually passes JSON to it, so it knows to go, oh, this is passing JSON. It's got like a login. It's got like a session ID and all this other stuff in it. This is obviously an API request. I'm going to let that through. It's got post data and stuff in it. You can see here in my the verdicts is, we've had 59% allow, 33% challenge, and 38% deny. So that means 8% were scrapers and bots. So it's interesting to see just how few individual actors are causing huge amounts of traffic load. So 8% of the requests were bots, but they were causing, more than their fair share of load. But this has stopped them. And so I like this dashboard here. Let me show you how it's set up. So I've SSH'd into this web server. And this is just a standard Debian web server. If I can type this morning. Web server. And when you install Anubis, it sets up a directory here. And you actually just set up a environment file. So I have it binding to port 8924 and a metrics bind. So this is where the Prometheus scrape happens. So it listens on 8081 on this server, and then my Prometheus instance scrapes 8081 to get the data off of it. I serve robots.txt from my Nginx, so I don't worry about that. And so it targets. So it forwards the traffic after it's done its check to this Nginx socket. And if we go in here and look at my Nginx config, sites enabled, I have an Nginx. I have an Nginx config for it here. So it literally just proxies it to proxy path to Anubis, which I have defined here. The upstream Anubis. And so it just proxies, it just passes it back to that 8924 port that Anubis is listening on. You can get this to work with sockets. I really had a hard time Anubis knowing to work with sockets, so I just pass it to a TCP port. So it kind of does this loop. Is there a screen for Leander's workstation? Yes, I'm seeing it here. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, it's showing me it. So okay. So it just passes it to the Anubis service, and you can check that it's running here. It runs with systemd, and so Anubis at nginx.service, and so that refers to that. It's Anubis at the. Whoa! Did it just go white? What happened? Oh no, I was looking at the whiteboard. Okay. So it kind of, what was I saying? So yeah, so you have it. So basically, you have two Nginx definitions here. You have the first Nginx definition that is Anubis itself. This Nginx here handles the SSL termination. So we've got my certificate here, and then it passes it to there's a proxy path to Anubis. Anubis does its check, and then it forwards it back to Nginx on a socket, which that's defined here. So you can see that we're listening on a socket instead of a port. It knows that it's looking for this server name, and this is the actual config for the Polygo instance. So you've got your root directory and all the stuff you would expect in Nginx servers. There's your robots.txt file and all that stuff.
Leander, we're still looking at the whiteboard.
Huh, that's strange. I can see. Yeah, let me stop sharing and reshare.
This is Rusty. I was looking for Leander's screen, and so I toggled on whiteboard on my little Android phone, and somehow that forced whiteboard to be visible to other people.
Gotcha.
But now I see Leander's screen. I don't know how or why. I don't.
Yeah, one's me, one's my screen.
Ah, okay.
So
this is very lightweight. I think Anubis uses, like, even on a high traffic day, uses well under 100 megs of RAM and almost no CPU on your server. And I like the solution. It does make the end user's computer do a little bit of math, but so it costs them maybe a little bit of battery life on their phone or something. But the trade-off of not having to shoulder the burden of, well, you saw it here in my graph. I guess I'll go back here, of the tens of thousands of requests of this was literally just OpenAI scraping. And Alibaba and all those companies hoovering up my data to be used as digital mulch. So, but yeah, basically you can come here if you want to install it and go to their GitHub repo. And they have some sponsors and stuff. I do recommend, if you find this useful, I actually signed up for their Patreon here. And I think I kick them like $5 a month, which is way cheaper than a Cloudflare bill. So you can also, they just released a new update, it looks like. So you can come in here. It's not in any, it's so new, it's not even in any repositories. It may be in Arch, but it's not in like Debian or Fedora or Red Hat yet. But you can come here and look at the bug fixes and stuff. And they have various packages. And I've tested the Debian package on Debian and Ubuntu, and it works fine. There's RPM if you're a Red Hat person. There's, of course, the source code. If you are a Docker person, there is a Docker. There is a Docker file in here somewhere. I swear there is. Maybe in the documentation here. Let me docs. Yes, there is you can pull it. I use Podman, but yeah. But there is a Docker Compose file. You can run it. You can run it through Podman or Docker. But there's also these documentations, so you can come in here and look at how to configure it based on you can have different parts exposed. So like your well-known directory, if you're using that for Let's Encrypt, you can have it just a default action allow to that. So if you're having problems with that working, you can set up these YAML files to direct deny specific bots and all of that stuff. Again, I would use that with caution because that assumes that the bot is being well behaved and the bot is properly IDing itself. A lot of these scrapers are lying. They're claiming to be Netscape or something to get past that. So that only really works for well-behaved bots. You can do all sorts of stuff in here. They've added a read it. Oh, that's new. So, like I said, this is a very fast-moving project. Oh yeah, here you go, Dan. Here's your Docker. So yeah, there is a Docker there's Docker stuff available here. So yeah, if you want to run it through that, I just used the base package. I ran it through Podman for a while, but considering I, have like a web server that I just put stuff in a var directory, I was like, let's just use the package. That's easier. But yeah, so that's what it does. That's what it looks like. If you've gone to, let's see, FFmpeg documentation, they use it. It's all over the internet nowadays. I've been on the FFmpeg documentation, so it's probably, was it? No, there we go. Yeah, so they use it too. FFmpeg, a lot of open source projects are using this as a way to stop bots, because not only is it like I would say a morally dubious thing, like I said, especially with Google and those places kind of breaking the social contract of, hey, we'll index your site, but we'll send traffic back to you. They can see where it came from, they can click a link and go back, to just regurgitating it in an LLM and not giving any credit, not giving any traffic back. Also, I'm just serving, like, this is a basic PHP MySQL thing. My website is just a static site generator. This is just a Pelican site, so this is pretty speedy. It's not that hard to serve, but like GitLab and some of these other things, especially when they start digging down into like some of the Git commits and stuff like that, can be really resource intensive to serve on some of these programs. Are pretty intensive Python and sometimes Ruby and stuff like that, and so it can really run up their hosting bill and have them cause them to pay for resources, which if you're an open source project, money that you're having to use to deal with this crap is money you're not using to pay developers or anything like that. So it's become more common. I think FreeBSD has started using it too on their forums and their wikis and stuff. So highly recommend checking it out. It's pretty easy to set up. Again, just install the package, configure it's literally, basic is literally 4 lines there to get it to work, and set it up in front of your Nginx or your Apache or your Tomcat or other Docker container or whatever you want, and away you go. Any questions? No, this here is a VM on a mini computer I have downstairs. This runs on a VM and a server rack that I have, a rack server that I have now in Durham. So, yep. So I also have, so this one here, this is Gitsy, and I have this running in a container, and this is kind of like my own personal GitHub. But you saw Anubis pop up. I'm actually running Podman, Anubis, and Podman to protect this. So because it was already a container. So, but yeah, this is Gitsy. So I also run it here, and this is running on a container on the side of a VM at a rack server down in Durham. So, but so far, no. I have a static IP and everything. And even if they did, I would probably I'd probably end up having to do a Cloudflare D tunnel or something to tunnel out. But I just run this downstairs as an experiment. I may ship this VM off to my rack server in Durham. I kind of just stuck it down there because I have more resources on that mini PC. My rack server is getting a little old now. I need to add some stuff to it, but I have no, I think not. I run on my router is basically is an open sense box, and I run a Nginx proxy there that does a lot of on that box. It doesn't it doesn't just plain forward. It does its own version of like bot checking and all of that other stuff too. So it actually stops bad actors at the router, and I've got intrusion detection and stuff running on it. So it's kind of its own little firewall. And so like I have it configured for different. I have it configured for. So I have split DNS. This is sounding okay. We're getting way off in the weeds here, but I have split DNS. So if you look up my website from outside my network, it resolves to my external IP. If you look it up from inside my network, it resolves, so I don't hairpin through the router firewall. It resolves to the local machine where this is sitting, which is in a different subnet from my regular network. I have a public subnet that they can't talk into my my local machines here. And go ahead, sorry. But it's called DNS. It's called split DNS. But yeah, that's how I run that. But you know, this here is literally just there is a, let's see, can I don't know if I want to broadcast that to the world or not, but basically I have a 6-core rack server in Durham with some like 48 gigs of RAM, and that's where a number of my things. That's where my mail server lives. I've got KVM running on there, and I run that. I've got Podman. I've got a VM running Podman, and so we've got containers inside of virtual machines for some container stuff down there. And I've got another one is just a flat Nginx kind of thing that runs this web page and a couple of others. This is also running off of that down there. My photography website. But yeah, I've got a game server running down there for like Quake 3 and stuff like that too on there. I have a little VM, but yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, Leander. I run a website that serves up camera images as well as weather updates. Will Anubis block FTP uploads to the server?
No, it will not. It'll only listen. So like how I have it set up is it literally listens on port it literally listens here. So it literally listens here on port 443 SSL. So that's the only place it's going to listen. So
okay.
Your bots aren't scraping FTP anymore. There's just us old folks using that these days, so they don't care. But I imagine if you wanted to, that would be an interesting use case. I wonder if you could set it up to proxy FTP and be like, this looks suspicious, and block it. It's pretty smart, and you can, I'd have to dig around to the documentation. But you can, like I said, you can come through here if you are having issues with a specific thing. You can come in here and custom expression best. You can come in here and do a rule match that says, if the header, so by default it does this. So this is why Darktable works, is it'll allow application JSON. So Darktable, when you upload a picture to Polygo with Darktable, it passes as a JSON with like your username and password and the photo or batch of photos you're trying to upload. And so Anubis is smart enough. They have this filter rule here that it'll go, oh, that's someone trying to upload a file. We'll let that through. No problem. Could that be exploited later on? Probably, but so could the API in the program itself. So I don't think that's a big issue. But if you are having issues, you can come in here and look at their documentation, craft your own kind of custom rule to allow a certain IP or a certain client, or it can look at the the client, the ID string and all of that stuff and match based on that.
Also, one other question. What is Anubis ransomware?
I don't think that's related.
Okay.
I've never heard of that. Anubis, the name is taken from the Egyptian god who weighs your soul at the end of your life to let you into Egyptian heaven or hell. And so the idea is here is they're weighing the soul of your HTTP connection to decide whether to allow you in or not. So that's where that comes from. I don't know what the Anubis ransomware is. I'm assuming this being a rather pop culture name is probably well known. It was probably used by several other things, but this is not malware insofar as I can tell. And like I said, some pretty big organizations are using it now. So, any other questions?
I got some questions, Rusty here.
Okay.
I was surprised to hear your description of how big a problem this is with bots visiting content. The total traffic cost, I guess, is equal to the size of the content and the frequency of visitation.
It is, yeah.
And what I'm struck by is I don't think of a lot of websites as having that much content for an individual website, but the visitation must be like a one size all, sort of a high frequency of visitation without any regard for categorizing the actual website according to how often it's changing. In other words, it sounds like a very dumb programmer programming the visitation frequency with total disregard to whether or not there's much of any change occurring.
So that's kind of the issue, is that this is, getting on my soapbox a little, this is late stage capitalism, I guess, at work here, is that you have, he who gets the oil or the data first wins. And so there is extreme pressure on the company side to constantly be checking for new content, like you said, because if they can scrape it first and they can get it into their bot first and train their bots on it, their bot is a fraction of a percent better than the other guy's bot, and maybe they'll get more users on it. And they're in that market capture phase of what Silicon Valley companies like to do. And so they have no regard. They just need more mulch for their bot.
Yeah, but I thought I heard you also say that they are driven by a fear that there will one day be some form of legislation limiting their mining operation. And so that if that day seems close, then that makes them ever more diligent in scraping the last available legal content.
Yeah,
until there's legislation to.
Probably part of it. I honestly, I don't know. I don't think I said anything. I don't recall, but personally, this is Leander's personal take. I could be wrong. It happened once before in the 80s, me being wrong, but it was. I think a lot of governments are either bamboozled by these tech companies or see this as the next Manhattan Project, or both, and are probably going to do little of anything meaningful to stop them because they're scared of, America's scared of the Chinese getting this, comparison to the www bubble of the late 90s are pretty apt. I think there was a lot of money flowing into that thing, and that bubble popped and a lot of companies failed. But there was a lot of money flowing in there because people knew it was going to be something big. They didn't know how or why or what the ultimate form of it was going to be. And so there was a lot of speculation and money flowing into the World Wide Web, to try to get that gold rush, get the first mover advantage kind of stuff. And then, the bubble popped, but a lot of companies, most famously pets.com folded and stuff like that. But, we still wound up with like Google and Amazon and other companies that came out of that. There were still winners. And so I think we're in that late 90s phase of this, where it's a lot of companies know it's going to be something. They don't know how or what. They're, we're in the like AI in your refrigerators like they're shoving AI in everything they can. I use AI loosely. I very much agree with Steve, but he's not here right now, about referring to these as any kind of real intelligence. They aren't. But I just use AI so that way people can understand, know what I'm talking about. You know, the thing I'm referring to, the LLM, the machine learning bot. They're going to be a thing. I'm sure there's probably going to be some application of them somewhere, and so there's a lot of money flowing into it for them. The people are in that, like, figuring it out. I imagine in 5 or 10 years, there's going to be a lot of dead companies on the roadside who were AI companies, and but there will be a winner. There will probably be a winner that probably has this stuff. And again, I don't see meaningful legislation to stop this coming from any government, because they're all scared if they tap the brakes, the other guy will win. You know, our government's like, well, what if China gets it? And the Chinese government's like, what if Americans and the Europeans get it first? You know, what does it mean? They don't even know what this is going to look like. It's just it's the new shiny toy, and everyone's got to have it, even if it upends our life as we know it. That's also my other thing. I think a lot of we'll say pessimists about this technology, and I'm definitely one of them. I don't like where a lot of this is going. Are I think overestimating or underestimating people's businesses' ability to put up with less quality as long as it's cheaper, and especially some of the agentic stuff that's coming along. It's I would say ignore this at your own peril. Even if it doesn't improve much more from where it's now, I think it's still good enough that it's going to upend a lot of things. And like I said, you can argue that the output is crap a lot of the time, and I'm right there with you, man. I try using these things, and I'm like, how do people get anything out? Am I just dumb? Can I not get anything useful out of these things? But it's people's tolerance for, and I see it especially in students and stuff. It's amazing the amount of work someone will put in trying to use like an automated tool to avoid doing actual work. It's bizarre to me. I'm like, you could have just done the thing faster than trying to get it out of this bot. But anyway, they're here to stay. I don't think companies are tapping. I don't think any government's going to meaningfully slow these things down, either because they're in the tech company's thrall or they're scared of someone else getting it first. I'm just trying to stop my stuff from becoming digital mulch. That being said, someone did say something to me at work this week that kind of made sense, is that websites are probably going to be a thing of the past soon. We kind of already see that on the business end. You don't go to, localsubshop.com to see their menu anymore. You probably go to their Instagram page or their Facebook page or something and look at their hours and stuff, or their Yelp page. People don't have individual websites anymore. It's already kind of conglomerated around individual social media stuff. And what he was saying was that, probably in the near future, and the way we're seeing students use these things is that, they don't go to appstate.edu. Like, at school, we are wholeheartedly flinging all of our data. Like, they have bought the Microsoft Copilot license, and we are ingesting everything into it, with the idea that instead of the students going to financialaid.appstate.edu and saying, I need this form to fill out, they go to a chat bot and says, hey, I need to get financial aid for the fall 2025 semester. What do I need to do? And it tells them what they do. So websites, I think, are probably going to become even more niche thing in the future too, because of this technology. But I told that whole story about the onion on my belt to say that if you are a business using Anubis, it's a nuclear option, but I have noticed more people using AI to get recommendations for things like locally. So if you are a business and your goal is to be discoverability, to be discovered, like you want clients to find you, blocking these bots is at your own peril. Somebody kind of turned me on to that the other day. It was like, if I'm looking for a photographer in Boone, I'm going to go here and look. Oh, look, it knows about you. It recommends you. It says that it grades your work. It says, oh, his work is great. It's got this feel to it. If you want this type of style photography, go here. So it's wild, weird world here. So yeah, I don't know. Long story, just kind of an interesting take on these things and where they're going. But any other questions? Oh, I'm probably going to be out of work in 5 years. Don't listen to me. My boss has come down on me. He's like, my boss is like, man, you were wrong. He's like, I went home and I totally vibe coded this .NET application. He's like, you are 300% wrong. You need to get on this train. I was like, okay. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think that LLMs are they're useful machine tools, but I don't see a reasoning capability. The agentic stuff I think is interesting, and that is where, so you run, instead of running one big model, you run 5 models and they kind of come to a conclusion. So like you have one model that's designed to be the skeptic. So you have 4 models, like you ask them, I need a Python program that does this, and they all come up with a solution. And 3 out of the 4 are okay, 1's way off base. And you have one model that's a skeptic, and it goes in and says, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And then it provides you with like a more refined. So it does the part of like right now when you use a bot, you go, I need this and it's wrong. And you've got to tell it, no, that's wrong, and argue with it. Well, that skeptic bot does that for you. So I think that's probably, and that's not really intelligent either. That's just, that's, no. But I don't think, I would say, I would be shocked if that comes in my lifetime. I would tell you what, Dan, you can have if it happens, here's how confident. I will sign you my house, all 3 of my cars, everything. You'll get every, this is video proof. If this happens, if it happens in my life, not even in 18 months, I will give you every scrape of my property and live in a box. Like, it's a deal. Here's my address. You can have everything I own. Literally.
So that's kind of a hollow promise, given that we'll all be living in boxes. So,
but I have the math background in this stuff. It's interesting. I don't see it being. Until I see a bot generate something that it hasn't already seen, and I haven't like it. They mash things together and they regurgitate things they've seen, but I haven't seen, actual creativity out of them. You know what I mean? I don't think this technology is even, for me personally, the generative AI is more interesting than LLM. And even out of that, I haven't seen anything out of the technology or the papers. All of this is based off of a 2015 Google Transformers paper. That's all this current technology is based off of. And it's impressive, and it's only been recently we've got the compute to scale up to it, but it's not general reasoning. It's essentially a fancy gradient is what it is. And I think we've probably, but I don't think what we have now, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think what we have now is going to lead to AGI. This is I don't think what this technology here, it's like saying the World Wide Web was going to lead to I don't think this technology is going to be the basis for AGI. I think that we're going to hit, or maybe we have already plateaued. I think we're going to hit a limit either in compute resources or just new information that they can ingest. And because if you look at like even the commercial models, like GPT-5 is not much better than 4. We're kind of hitting limits of what could come out of these things. I think to get to AGI, I'm not saying it won't happen, but I think there's going to be a different approach needed. And I haven't seen any of that yet. Everyone's still chasing. No. And I don't see that. I mean, people have been saying AGI is since I was a kid. I mean, they've been working on this at the MIT lab since the 60s. I think it's, I am very confident that we won't see that. We will see more agentic helpers. We will see more derivatives of this. But I don't think AGI is anywhere near, because it's, like I said, I haven't seen anything in that field that has, again, we have to kind of identify and define what that means too. But I haven't seen anything in those fields that makes me think it's anywhere near. I've just seen further refinements of this transformers technology. I've seen Grok 3. Again, that's just another, again, that's just based on the transformers, and its performance is actually it's kind of middle of the pack these days. So it's just back on the transformer paper. It's not, and the reasoning stuff is the reasoning models got a little more interesting, but they're still fundamentally, they are transformers. So so I think it's like what we have. I think what we have now is the ICE car, right? It's the internal combustion car, but saying that the ICE car is going to lead to the electric car, yes and no. Like, your electric car is going to have 4 wheels and a steering wheel. Well, maybe not anymore. You have a yoke, but fundamentally, internally, they are completely different animals. They both walk and quack like a duck or a car. They both go down the road. They both seat 4 or 5 people. They both have air conditioning, but internally, they are completely wholly different things. And it's saying that this technology is going to lead to AGI is like saying your ICE car is going to lead. It's going to lead to electric car. No, you have to re-engineer the entire internal guts, and that's what we're going to have to. If we want AGI, I think we're going to need a different fundamental type of technology. Yeah, I'm confident that that's pretty far off. I don't, but I don't usually buy into a lot of the hype stuff. So, but my boss got on me a couple weeks ago. He's like, you are 300% wrong. He's on your side, Dan. He's like, you are an idiot. You need to get on this tomorrow. I want to see you using this because if you aren't getting anything out of this, you have no idea what you're doing, and they're going to have no business in this work in a few years. So, yeah.
Do you think that the AI as it exists now is monetizable, and that AGI may or may not be able to be monetized?
By who, I think, is the question there. I think by the resources on the current models are so extreme to use that I think it's going to be another wealth transfer up. Like, I mean, just in the same way a lot of our current technology is enriching a small subset of people. I think I don't think it'll be able to be monetized by you or me. I think it will be, because here's the thing: how do you trust these bots? Let's say you've got the new idea for the Super Scrubber 1000, right? But you need some help on how to patent it or something. You go to Ask AI. Who's to say ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, or Grok is, they aren't recording those conversations, and some intern or somebody there goes, that's a pretty good idea, and then beats you to the patent office with it. Would you really trust it with your confidential data? The same thing has happened with the App Store on cell phones. You know, if you had Apple's notorious for this. If they see an application in their App Store that's doing really well, they'll build the technology into the next version of iOS, and that guy will be out of business. You know, that happened with a couple of camera apps and some. I think Siri originally started that, and they bought Siri and integrated it. I don't think that's. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it'll put more power into the big. That's what literally scares me about it. Is it's going to put more power into bigger entities' hands, private and public, and we won't be able to escape it.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll be able to monetize it. I certainly won't.
Leander, got an expansion of this a question of how AI may somehow avoid the consolidation of property power, which property includes patents and copyrights. And that property is only as good as the ability for people to show that it has provenance and what you might call priority and proof. And I'm not aware of any site, like you take a scraper that is scraping content and then reusing content without giving attribution. And attribution depends upon a database to know that the provenance of the given content is real, that it has a place in time, or a person in time if we're talking about content created by humans. And it seems to me if the curtain came down and suddenly you had to give footnoting for all of the content that you rebroadcast or that you include in your AI deliveries, then if suddenly you had to do that, well, then if all your content is scraped with no preservation of attribution, then suddenly you're out of business. You're echoing of content across the internet as an AI, as an educational right under the copyright laws. Your echoing of content is suddenly it's like garbage in, garbage out. So, I mean, which of these companies have discussed or plan to give really good attribution when they are echoing content in an AI service?
I think some of these bots, I know, what is it, Notebook LM, some of them will like say, this is on page 4 of something, and sometimes they aren't right, obviously, but sometimes they are. This is on page 4 of this book or this manual or something like that. But I think, Rusty, that whole argument hinges on the legal system and the legal system understanding the problems there or not. You know, I mean, if I was a judge in that position, you know, you're going to have to weigh, okay, so I'm going to protect this book publisher, but, you know, this ruling is going to throw this entire world-changing industry under the bus. You know, how many judges are going to go for that? I don't know. And how much money is greasing palms in the backside? You know, there's lobbyists for these organizations. There's lobbyists for this stuff. I don't know. I don't see the legal protections really being there for it. Fair, you know, unfortunately it seems fair use is for billionaires these days, and you know they're okay with them. The legal system seems to be okay with them scraping and regurgitating stuff, but heaven forbid you be a 16-year-old in the year 2001 and download a Metallica song. It's yeah, I see your point, but that I think that hinges on too many things that are soft and squishy. You know what I mean? Like they aren't hard, fast facts, and they are um, open to interpretation by several different layers of our legal system and whatnot. So I don't know. I wouldn't count on copyright protection. The one spot I have seen it is some lawyers have tried to use AI in their court cases, obviously, and it's ended up making up court cases that didn't exist. They didn't proofread them or whatever they were supposed to do, and the judge was like, "This court case never happened. What's this talking about?" And they got fined because they're like, "Oh, we use ChatGPT." So it's, I don't know, and they are getting better allegedly and not hallucinating. Like I said, I just don't know. We're getting way off the topic here, but it's a conundrum. It's definitely not going anywhere. And I would not rely on government or legal help, and it depends on your threat model. For me, I'm okay not being digital mulch. That's just my take on it.
I do think that if any competent company were to set up its AI to do referencing or attribution of content well, then that company has the potential to do a favor to the sources of new content, which are, if they are truly human sources that have been created with their full intelligence. I guess what I'm getting at is the cheaper version, which doesn't give attribution to its content. It could be really hampered by its expediency and its neglect when confronted with a really good service that has a feedback loop to give attribution, because attribution is also a favor to your customers, and your customers are human. I mean, we're not talking about AI serving AI machines. AI is serving humans. And if you give attribution well, then you're actually fitting into something that you might call the ethical basis of AI, the ethical underpinnings.
I think there's probably limited. So your end user has to care, and most people don't. They're just looking, like they go online, they're looking for an answer, and I think like the AI results on Google are so popular now because it's just plain text. You're not wading through 50 pop-ups and popovers and things like that. That is one spot where I have kind of used it a little bit as search engines, because a lot of websites are terrible now. But for doctors, lawyers, professionals who do need to cite their work, yeah, I could see that being a thing, and I could see that being a paid subscription service thing, maybe. But your general audience, that's going to be a specialty thing. That's going to be like, what is it, Springer? I don't know. Brent might know more about that in the medical world. But there's like special services where you could pay for access to specific journals and all this other stuff. But that might be a specialty product, a specialty service. But your general public, I don't think, is going to give any care as to the attribution. They're just looking for, like, how do I cook a chicken? Maybe. So, or what's the best chicken restaurant in Asheville? They're just kind of looking for an answer. They don't really care where the data came from. And like I said, some search engines AI modes do have the links, some of them now, but I think the rate of click through on that is very low, very, very low, and will only go down. Right. There's I'd heard of is it Springer Link, or there was another one. I can't, yeah, there's a couple of them out there, but I see those being very, Dan, very target market. Like they aren't going to be general public aren't going to be generally interested in that. Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to cut this off needlessly, but I did want to leave a little time for going around the
Yes.
room. That was definitely very engaging conversation.
Sorry, we got way off the thing, but yeah.
Mildly off topic, but aren't we always? So, well, I will start going around the room because what I have to say is vaguely in relation to this. So Friday I usually sort of do like my more at work. I do stuff that I more enjoy. I try to focus on projects that I enjoy doing. So I decided I'd mess around with improving on some of my sim work. And one problem I have is I have this process that downloads log data from one of our authentication providers. And the way it ends up in the logs is with the time that it's ingested, not the actual time of the activity. So it makes it annoying to work with. So I decided I was going to try to fix this. And one of the things I could do to fix this is perhaps use NXLog, because I'm already using NXLog as part of this. Use NXLog to take in the data and then munge it, and then take the one field and replace the timestamp with it. As it turns out, spoiler alert, that's not really easy to do with what I was doing with the community edition. But I decided, well, let me just use our AI. We have like a AI portal at work, which, since we're dealing with health information sometimes, it basically sanitizes what gets sent up to the AI, and it does some other protections and auditing and so forth. So I used our AI product, and I was ultimately, I think, using Grok as the back end. We do have a choice of back ends, and I did only try this with Grok. So I asked it, to provide me some configuration help, and I just basically decided to just go with whatever it said, and it kept going sort of back and forth with bad assumptions until finally it got the clue after maybe about the 12th iteration of receiving these errors from NXLog that what I was trying to do just wasn't possible in the community edition. So it really, I mean, if it had good understanding, if it was, it seems like this is something that's happened over and over again, that you walk the AI through a series of wrong answers before getting the right answer, which is not particularly efficient. And I would have learned more doing it the old way than just feeding this into the AI and having the AI get a bunch of wrong answers. Because when I get a bunch of wrong answers, I understand it a lot more. Because I've come up with the answer, and then I'm like, oh, that's why that's the wrong answer. So I didn't do this really it was more of just, okay, let's see if the AI actually can come up with this. But it did fail pretty spectacularly at the task involved, and I didn't learn anything, and I was no closer to my goal, other than having the one bit of information of what I'm trying to do is probably, because again, I can't trust that answer either, right? It's probably not possible in the software that I'm trying to do it. That's why I generally don't use AI that much at work. It is good at some very basic things, like when the products are less esoteric, and NXLog isn't crazy esoteric, but it's not PowerShell, right? If I wanted to do a PowerShell that does XYZ, it's pretty good about providing that very basic output of something, especially if it's something that a dozen people have tried to do. But that's also something that I can generally do with a web search. Like, so and so on this support site says this is how you make such a script. And again, the output of that usually isn't good to go for my use case. So me interpreting that is educational. So in every case, I lose something by using AI because my understanding of it isn't as comprehensive. In the best case scenario, it saves me a bit of time. In the worst case scenario, it wastes a ton of my time.
I have to say, Brett, my experience kind of mirrors you. That I feel like I could look at, and that's why, Dan, I push back on yours. Is that assumption there is that AI is okay as a reference for things it's seen before, but sometimes I'm doing something like Brett was talking about. Maybe only a handful of people have had a problem with, and it's not something it's scraped up and is really knowledgeable on, and it really can't seem to function there. It's not. It's good as it's a good replacement for a reference book for something that's well trodden, but for something that is not. That is like I'm banging two rocks together that nobody else has banged together before. It isn't great. Also, did Grok ever refer to itself as Mecha Hitler for you? So, is it still doing that? But yeah, I agree, Brent. That's kind of been my experience with it. I told my boss about that our discussion about AI. I was like, I think inconvenience matters to learning. When learning Japanese, there's a lot of the younger students relied on digital tools, and they did not pick up. I was slower, but had a more thorough understanding of things. And I feel the same way about AI stuff. Is like, if it's something I don't care about, AI is probably okay. But if it's something I actually want to learn, then AI is a shortcut, and I don't. It's the potato chips of learning. That's nutritionally devoid. Like I don't actually learn it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the other thing that was sort of Linux at work is I think I mentioned this last time, but maybe it bears repeating, is that Debian released a new version, and I was going to build a template based upon that. I've opted not to do that because with a little reflection, I thought about why I left CentOS in the first place is because I was forced away from it. And when it comes down to it, like Debian doesn't always support like the enterprise applications that we're likely to need to use or would like to use. Like we have patch management software that only supports a handful of things, and Debian is not one of them. So instead, what I have done is I have built a Ubuntu server, and I have built an Oracle Linux server, which saying those two words in the same, like near each other, just feels wrong and bad, and it makes me feel a little dirty. But we are there's reasons like the support for Oracle Linux in general and the ecosystem of RPMs and a binary compatible RHEL system. That's why I was using CentOS, right? That I was using CentOS because more things supported it, and that was the right decision at the time. And going to Debian made some sense because things hadn't shook out as far as the death of CentOS. Now they have, and there are options. Rocky, Alma. So I built these two things, and we'll probably either use both or one of the above if we determine as we move along that one, like I think Oracle would be the preferred, and then if something doesn't support Oracle and supports Ubuntu, we would go there. And I'm going to try to standardize on one or the other as much as possible. I think it's going to be Oracle, but I don't know. So it's kind of weird being back in the RPM ecosystem again. But I had to just get away from like a certain amount of purity. I'm still going to use Debian for my own stuff, but I do think that it makes sense to go with something that if we do use a and this has happened already. We have a piece of software out there that a vendor is saying, okay, you have to use something like this. That's forced us into the RPM world as well. And that particular choice at that point in time was Alma. But I think if we can force things onto Oracle and standardize there, we'll probably make our lives a lot easier as far as being able to manage them with the same collection of tools.
Are there fees involved in using the Oracle?
Just been doing my regular, just maintaining websites and taking care of other stuff around my house. I was kind of proud of myself because I took a train furnace and it had stopped heating last spring. So I diagnosed the problem and decided it was a computer control board issue. And I bought the replacement control board and removed the old one and plugged in probably like 15 different wires, fired the thing up, and it worked.
Nice.
You know, almost everything now has a computer control circuit board in it, like automobiles and motorcycles and washing machine, everything. So I thought it'd be interesting if somebody could take like a Raspberry Pi single board computer and design an emulator that emulated all the control functions of all these individual products. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon for commercial proprietary.
Second million there, Alan.
But it would solve so many problems. You know, these control boards are expensive, and they don't really need to be. It's just pretty known technology, but they each have their own firmware that would need to be emulated. Anyway, that's about it for me. Enjoyed the discussion, Leander, and everybody else. That was very interesting.
Gene?
Well, I don't have a whole lot. I did get into, well, an area that I don't really understand. I kind of inherited an HP EliteBook 850, and the battery kept reporting that it was not charging. So I said, well, I'll go online and buy a new battery and see if that helps. And the new battery is acting pretty much exactly like the old battery did. And so I don't know enough about the back end of all that to know how to do anything about it, but I'd appreciate any advice anybody has. Well, the firmware gets updated with Linux, but I don't know about updating the firmware on. See, I did update something. I updated the BIOS on it. So that would be through HP, right? Yeah. No, I haven't tried that, but that's a good idea.
Is the fan running properly? Can you tell?
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Seems to. Doesn't seem to overheat or crash because of overheating or anything. I haven't really looked at the stats on it. That was another thing. I did look at a reporting program that, you know, because I didn't know whether to, I didn't know that I could trust the Ubuntu battery program itself, you know. So I was a little suspicious there. So I went looking for another program, and what I found, I can't remember the name of it, but it's something D, like I want to say Control D, but it wasn't that. It was like some kind of reporting. Anyway, I installed it, and then I went to configure it, and it's all talking about serving, your Apache server or whatever, configuring that. So I figure what that was, the program was that it was looking at a remote machine and reporting back to the main server its status. But it did have something that supposedly reported battery statistics. So anyway, that's pretty much it for me. I always seem to fall into things that I get in there, and then I don't understand where I am, and just sort of give up on them.
Gene,
Yes.
I believe the Dells come with a self-test program. I don't remember how you activate it, but you might want to check that out.
The which Dell?
Yeah, did you say it was a Dell machine?
No, it's an HP machine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think they have the same thing also.
Oh, okay. So yeah, as part of the boot menu.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you hold down one of the keys when you do a restart, and it varies on model, F1, F2,
Yeah.
F10.
There's
You might be
usually-
able to come up with that.
It's usually like of Dells and Lenovo's, it's usually like F12 boot menu. But yeah, Brent just said F2, but there's usually like a way to get the boot menu, and one of the options is like some sort of bare essentials onboard diagnostic thing.
Yeah, they're all different. If you do a hard reboot, usually it pops up for about 2 seconds in one of the corners. Hit this key to start up in diagnostic mode or something like that. You might have to restart a number of times.
If it has a CD drive, or even if it doesn't, if you're capable enough to write the image to a USB stick, go look up the Ultimate Boot CD, and it's a little CD image, and it has all sorts of test tools for RAM, hard drives, battery stress testers. If you think something's wrong with it, like overheating or the power supply is not giving it enough juice. But you can use it. You can burn it to a CD if you still have an optical drive, or you can write the image to a USB stick and boot from it. And it's a killer little thing to have around for, I would just get like a cheapo little 2 gig or 4 gig one of these guys, write it to it, and leave it in a drawer somewhere so you always have it. But yeah, that's been the Ultimate Boot CD. Let me see if I could post a link in chat. Yeah, let's see. No, I'm not looking for the University of Maryland, Baltimore. Let's see. Oh, wait, I will say, Dan, internet search has gotten a lot worse. That has been the one thing that AI has been useful for me. Is like, I just need this piece of information. Let's see. There she goes. There's the link. So yeah, it's just a little DOS-based. Well, it's Linux, ISO Linux, but it looks like a DOS interface.
Okay, thanks, Leander.
Yeah, they've got all sorts of stuff. You can test and fry and test your computer all day. So
Great.
So.
But that's about it for me then, Brent. I'll kick it back to you.
Thanks, Gene. Larry.
Well, I don't have anything really great to say either. I mean, the AI discussion was interesting to me about whether the AI that's still assuming to listen to it. One thing you were talking about, how everything has control boards in it. And I noticed that too. I mean, it's crazy. And then with vehicles nowadays compared to when I was growing up and what I used to work, cars I used to work on, everything's gone crazy with all the electronics. It seems to me much more difficult to deal with if you're not an electronics wizard, which most people aren't, it seems like. But another place I see it is with these kids and all their toys. Unbelievable how much electronics and everything has batteries in it, and how many people can really do with it? They just throw it away. But anyway, my computer seems to be working okay still. I don't tend to update all the time like some people do, so maybe that's what keeps them working okay. Anyway, I'm kind of low on time. I think I don't really have much to add, but thanks for the presentation. And that's it for me for right now.
Well, thanks, Larry. Leander, did you have anything else?
I've probably read it enough. The mention of Joe Pollock, I actually have been. I'll be looking at my telescope automation has caught the attention of the astronomy lab people at ASU, and so I'm going to be working on a couple of different Linux-based solutions for automating the student lab telescopes there. Kind of a side quest at work, not really my day job, but kind of. So we'll kind of maybe report back on how that worked. But yeah, Joseph Pollock, he died a number of years ago. He was my advisor in undergrad, but it was Joseph T. Pollock instead of Joseph P. Pollock is the one on our list. And right after he passed away, our Joseph Pollock here emailed the list, and I was like, whoa, what? Whoa, ghost. And I was like, oh, wait, different one.
From the grave, from beyond the grave.
So, but yeah, I was a bit close to him. But yeah, this was Joseph T. Pollock. He was a professor here, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But that's, I had something else I was going to talk about, and my brain went. Oh, I did. So I found this neat little tower case for a Raspberry Pi, so I ordered yet another one of those. But I set it up in our lab area at work, and put Jellyfin on it because it's this. It had a dual NVMe enclosure, and I set up. We're always listening to music in there, and I'm like, I've got 100 gigs of flax, and I'd rather not suffer with everyone else's Spotify choices. So I set up Jellyfin, if you guys have never heard of that, and loaded my music onto it. And I have invented my own Spotify, and everyone's liking it and using it to where you can upload and put flax. And probably shouldn't say that too loudly, but it's on a private network, and so we're just kind of having our own little thing there. But yeah, if you have a need for like streaming media on your own thing, and it runs fine on a little Raspberry Pi, streaming your own music, your own videos, look at Jellyfin. So, but that has been a good experience. But yeah, that's kind of it. Thanks for listening to me rant. Hopefully it was useful.
What version of Raspberry Pi did you buy?
A 5. So I got this case. It's called the Pyron Man 5 case, and it looks like I got it because it was one of those, hey, I got paid today. What's available for me to spend? But I saw it as this came up, and it looks like a little computer mini tower, and it's got like RGB. It looks like a little gaming computer. I'll send some pictures. But so I was like, man, this might be interesting to actually get the kids interested in this stuff. And it's worked because it's like, man, this looks like my desktop at home. And so they're playing with it and having all kinds of fun. And I showed them, we put Jellyfin and things on it. But yeah, it comes with a tower cooler. It's called an ice cube tower cooler on it and everything. It's got a dual NVMe board. I just stuck a Pi 5 in there, and yeah, so the kids are like, well, it went from like, oh, this is some weird gadget to like, oh, this is pretty cool. It's got lights and stuff, and you can program it. Yeah. I have a small inventory of them. In fact, here's a 3 I just pulled out of service with a broken, anyway, but so if you can't, I've got a 3. I've got a couple of 3s that I've decommissioned. I've got a 4 and a couple of 5s now. So yeah, I like them a lot, and it's working for getting the kids interested in that. And it serves a purpose where I don't have to listen to everyone else's bad Spotify choices. So that's all I got, though.
All right, thanks, Leander. And thanks again for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Pete.
Linux-wise, my Linux Mint machine just keeps on running along with Mint 21 on it, and I try not to have to update it to break it. And it's doing well. Talking about computerized stuff in your home, my 25-year-old refrigerator is still running fine. The problem is finding parts when the relays get a little flaky, or the timers that run the defrost cycle. Also, my 25-year-old washer and dryer are still running fine, and I attribute it to the fact they do not have any integrated circuits in them. And we have bad lightning storms up here, and integrated circuits and lightning do not go together well, that's for sure. I do have a question for everybody. My 2014 Vizio smart TV started popping up a message when I go to stream Netflix or Amazon or whatever, that they will no longer be supporting those apps come the end of September. My question is, does that mean they stop working, or does that mean I have to be forced to buy a new smart TV? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Two is you could just use the TV as a display and
stream my
yeah,
laptop.
get a I like the Apple TV over the Roku because they're a little bit more privacy respecting, and I mean I would, $150 for an Apple TV, and that's what I have, and I mean we only really watch YouTube on it, but you don't have to pay for an Apple TV subscription, and yeah, just go. And I genuinely, the Roku we had a few years, and it kept breaking, remotes kept like dying on it, and then they did their data scraping, and I just was like, nope, we're done here. And I give Apple a lot of grief for a lot of things, but they are definitely a premium hardware company and make their money on their 150% markup on their hardware, and so they aren't as interested in your data as Google and Roku are. So but yeah, that would be my solution. I wouldn't throw it. If the TV screen still works, I would just get a little box.
Yeah, it works fine. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Before I forget, here's a link to the Pyron Man case I bought. If anyone else is interested, they're about $100, $90 on Amazon, but they actually have a little OLED screen, the thing that sold me, on the front that will show you the status of the Pi and everything. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I'll quit interrupting. I posted.
Anything else, Pete?
No, that's it for me.
All right, Rusty.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the topic today, and I am using AI for my little projects to try to get me started. And the interesting thing is that I cannot help but just use iterations as proof of learning. I think I don't know anything except by way of metaphor. When you think of the way you even resource or access what you know, it's almost by models of metaphors. And so when AI tells me to do something on a project, goes here or there or do this configuration, I pose a metaphor often to say, is this what I'm doing? And I get a response, yes, you're right, or whatever. And then AI inevitably ends up giving me metaphors back, like the one most recent, explaining DHCP reservations as DHCP server being a valet who receives incoming automobiles, some of which have special parking tickets, which of course are self-created by the arriving vehicle. They're not really coming from anywhere else, as far as I know. And if those are presented, they're honored. And if there's nothing presented, then the car gets routed to the general parking area where everyone else is that doesn't have a special reservation. And I thought, well, you know, this is the way I think. If you keep coming at me with enough metaphors, and if they match, then it knows something. And I'm not sure that my brain is any better than working through metaphors. And I have to run this one by everybody. This is on setting up a bridge router where my devices cannot get the signal from the adjacent house.
Right.
And it's in the zone where there's a lot of failure and a lot of slowdown and unpredictable behavior. So naturally, I would like for the bridge router to, when it's bridged, I would like for it to be the only signal that I pay attention to. And AI is telling me that the model for bridging is that you have your primary host and all the configuration of security and password, et cetera. And it must and any router only has a configuration table for hosting a network or LAN. And it does, when it goes into bridge mode, all it does is take the configuration that is for hosting and use that for becoming a client to the primary. And so it's just simply one configuration of parameters for both the hosting duty that the bridge is doing and the client duty that the bridge is doing by going out and connecting to the primary. And so I said to AI, I said, this is kind of ridiculous. I don't want for my device to have to be parsing twice as many packets, coming from two sources to assemble data. I want my data assembled from one source. So I want to have my, I would like to have my bridge router communicating with me on a separate channel or even a separate major frequency from the frequency or channel that the primary router is hosting everything on. And I'm getting the message that this is the way that bridging is done. And I'm saying, isn't there some other tool? And I'm told that that's reserved for special mesh networks or full duplex bridging or, some such thing. And anyway, that's my latest conundrum, where I'm wondering, how in the world could bridging be going on for this long and no one setting up bridge routers to, basically where bridge routers, once they're bridged, they have to be using the same table for their relationship to the primary router that they're using for their relationship to hosted devices. The only thing that AI suggested was that I go to the primary router and lower the signal so that the device cannot get to the primary at all, and can only get signal from the bridging router. And I still don't know if this is accurate. I pose the question to everybody.
How far are the sites that you're bridging?
Oh, it's about 200 feet. So I'm definitely in a zone of very poor performance. I will see the bars on the signal sort of come and go just by moving around a little bit, a few feet here or there, you will radically change signal.
Have you considered
So
running
naturally, I don't want to.
have you considered
I don't want
running
to
a cable?
process. Oh no, no, that's more trouble.
It sounds like you're having a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I'd much rather stay wireless, but it just seems to be such a simple thing that, you know, the router is good at receiving packets, and it's also got a transmitter to send them out. And I don't understand why the transmitter out can't be different than the, you know, a different channel than the receiver that defines its relationship. Well, it's actually receiving and transmitting to one direction and receiving and transmitting to another direction. So it's a four-way table. Well, the other goal, of course, was to use some of these routers that I have laying around doing nothing. And so there is some sort of a structure that is called wireless access points, which is not the same thing as bridging.
But some routers support bridging. Yeah, depends on the router.
Oh yeah, well the router, in case I have one wireless that does WDS bridging, which seems to be sort of a special sort of software layer that might not fit for every brand of router, but then this Linksys clearly has bridge mode. But what I'm saying is it has no menu or parameter field where you can enter a separate channel for communicating to nearby devices compared to the other channel that you must use for your primary hosting router, which is the router that is your gateway and running your DHCP server. You know, your primary router is one channel, and there's no configuration field provided. When you go to bridge mode, you have no ability to. I mean, it just simply uses it's required to have an identical channel on all spots in that four-way table. That is for transmit and receive and for client relationship and host relationship.
I've never heard anybody doing bridging with like this disparate hardware before. Usually you have to stay in the same brand and family and line and all this other stuff to get that to work. Because it's like, Brent, you might know something about that from work too. It's there's not really a standard for it. They all kind of do it slightly different. So if you're trying to, I kind of agree with Dan there that you probably, if you're and you'll probably have a better overall experience upgrading to like a Wi-Fi 6 system or 6E. 7's out, but it's expensive. 6E is probably, I'm still running 6. So it's then trying to then this. That's quite amazing that it worked at all, I think.
Well, it hasn't worked yet.
I know it hasn't. Okay.
And it's a Netgear primary router, and I have two wireless, a TP Link and a Linksys that are both available to act as the bridging router, and they both have modes in some fashion. One of them uses WDS and whatever that stands for, and you simply point to the router that you want to bridge from, and but the Linksys doesn't use WDS. It just simply says, you want a bridge, give us your give us the address that you want to have, but we're going to get the parameters, that is password, security, channel, etc., is going to come from the LAN configuration that would be used for just running the router as a LAN host with no bridging duty. As soon as you say bridging duty, it's got to be a client to the primary, and it's going to use the same parameters when it kicks in to become client to primary.
Hey, Rusty, have you tried putting an external antenna to get a higher signal strength on the bridge?
Well, of course I did. I have antennas on the primary, and I've proven that that I am at the outer limits of performance, so that I get dropped connections, having to re-authenticate. I get signal slowing down and disappearing and magically coming back. So I definitely need a repeater function, which is what I'll call bridging. So I've got to have a.
You're using these as like completely wireless repeaters. Yeah, there's no cable between them.
Right. I don't want any cable, definitely.
Okay.
So it's just, I mean, I know that the wireless router has better reception to be a bridge agent instead of going directly to my poor little laptop wireless. So I mean, I've got antenna on both routers, so they can.
A directional antenna?
No, well, actually, one of them does have a focusing thing that is automated, but they're almost line of sight. So I just need more signal, more decibel strength, and I almost get it without, but I just need the bridge. But I'm really struck by how the bridge doesn't. When you bridge, you're basically telling both routers to, just send those packets out there. Don't worry about whether you're doubling the chore for the to put those packets back together at the device. But anyway, I may post something on it later if I still come up into.
Yeah,
that's all that I have.
Pete has a point. They used to sell higher gain external antennas that you could those are SMA connectors on the back of most of those routers, and so you could just like stick one up on a wall or something like that. That might
point it in the right direction.
Yeah, but that would be another option if it's simply a signal strength problem. But it would be interesting to see what you wind up with, because bolting the different brands together. The Linksys sounds like it has the best chance of using, because it sounds like it just acts like a store and forward almost. Like it sounds like it joins the wireless network as a client and then retransmits.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I said, a lot of these bridging and extender technologies are pretty proprietary, and
but
it'll be interesting to see.
It seems to me that if you do that, and you may have good signal from the bridge, but you're going to intermittently have packets coming from the long distance primary router, and those packets are going to be coming at you randomly and they all have to be filtered and fitted into the data. And it strikes me that it would be normal design to want to define the relationship between device and bridge router as an exclusive.
That's the way.
It should be hosted exclusively so that you can point your wireless card in your laptop directly to only one of the routers rather than both of them.
So that's where like buying the newer or the same brand of stuff works. So like I have a TP-Link APs, and they have a pod or Docker, like I said, Podman container that you can run, or you can buy their little box or their router, and it does all that. So the two APs I have talk back to that centralized router basically, and they can do band steering and whatnot. So you can so it knows what AP the device is on, and it can boot them off of one if the signal's too weak and force them onto another. All with one SSID, but that requires kind of integration at the software level, at the vendor's level. I don't think you're going to get that with like trying to baling wire and duct tape three old things in a box together. As admirable as that is, I don't think you're going to get that level of integration.
Yeah, that's probably a common definition of a software that everyone can follow and relate to. But that's, I may go back to the TP link, which has WDS.
Rusty, let me just say one thing. That I may be unclear on what you're trying to achieve, but there's a difference between a wireless access point and a router. And if you're trying, you really only want one router on the network, because otherwise they're going to conflict. So there's tons of information about how to set up a wireless access point. On my router, I've got a Netgear Nighthawk, and I flashed the firmware to DDWRT, and I'm looking at the page right now on the control panel, and it's got plenty of ways to configure a bridge. And what you can do, at least in DDWRT, is you can assign it to a specific interface, like an Ethernet port or a Wi-Fi card, and I think that may solve your problem. However, flashing a router has its own set of challenges and potential problems, but using DDWRT or OpenWRT gives you a lot more configuration options on trying to accomplish what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's my router, my access. There's one router and there's a Wi-Fi controller software that I use. But yeah, the access points aren't routers; they are just they just transmit the signal and forward the packets back to the switch.
Well, I'll see if I get. I may get
for a wired approach. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, thanks.
Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, I opted for like a semi-wired approach because I have multiple levels in my house. I'm in my basement, and that's where my main like router is. That's where the fiber comes in, is at the corner here. And then I have a cable that goes like through the raised ceiling here to the corner of the house, and then up to where my TV sits. So my TV is wired, my switch is wired, all that media stuff right there. Like there's a smart like sound bar there, right? It's all wired, but then there's an access point that sits there, So it's basically a switch plus an access point is all it is. It's actually a router, but it's being run, I think, with OpenWRT to be just a switch and access point. So that serves that level with the same SSIDs as are served down here. And I'm also running a cable out up to my son's room because he would not be happy with wireless for gaming, right? So if I wanted, I could do the exact same thing up there and serve him with the cable, whatever devices he wants, and then also have an access point up there if I had, especially if I had someone else in the upstairs bedroom up there full time, which I don't. They'd be well served by a third access point. But wiring up the access points, I mean, that's what you do in an enterprise, right? Is you wire up the access points. They're generally using PoE as well, but that really that segments things off from a layer 2 perspective, at least. And so you're not just sending all the packets all the places with various repeaters.
That's kind of I took Brent's approach. Mine, I have PoE. My access points are PoE down to the basement. I have my router and my stuff down there, and I have cables. So I have 10 gig. Actually, that's another thing I forgot to talk about. I bought a 10 gig USB-C adapter for my laptop, and it's working quite well. So I've got 10 gig to my laptop now. But I wire, as Brent said, I would never underestimate, I was about to ask if you had been introduced to my friend, the 100-foot Cat6 cable. So at some point you just can't beat a wire. So yeah, I'm a similar situation to Brent, as I guess what I'm getting at there.
Well, thanks. I will keep at it on this project and see what comes out. Thanks for the discussion.
All right. Anyone have any parting words before we go? Well, thanks for coming. Thanks again to Leander for presenting. Thanks to Dan for offering up the presentation next time, and I will see y'all there.
Yep. So long, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.